Hello and welcome to Grand Central Vortex. My name is Kate Loving-Shank and this is Tommaso Harner. And we are hosting these Hangouts. This is a series of Hangouts. And this is I shouldn't even say this, but this is our first one today. Spencer Johnson is our guest, and he has written a wonderful book called Trail Mix and Goon, and he is very much committed to the climate crisis. Tom, what do you have to say?
Well, I had a wonderful situation here when I was younger. I actually wanted to move to Australia, and a generation and a half later, I have a new friend who actually spent some time there. I guess it was for a full semester, right, Spence?
Yep, 5 months.
What year?
It was my junior year, so it was 2012 into 2013.
Wow. Go ahead, Tom.
So the purpose of the interview is actually to get some knowledge out about your book, and it's a kind of a fascinating book. I think when I spoke to you, I was reminiscing possible Hunter S. Thompson influence and Jack Kerouac as well. The whole book, there was something that was journalized, which you actually had been writing it as you went along, or did you periodically have some life experiences and sit down to write on a regular basis? How did you handle the writing part?
Yeah, it was really whenever I had time, when I wasn't working on papers or my independent study project. I was pretty much always, at my computer, mostly during the hours of like 12 a.m. and 4 a.m. at bars, just hanging out. Sometimes writing in an actual journal and then transcribing it, or typing it into a computer later. So pretty much whenever I was free, in the morning, right before coffee in class or after class, on the beach, everywhere.
Okay.
That's the way to write.
So the various points of interest of the book, that you make a great case for Australia being, pretty messed up in terms of their solution to any kind of climate change. We'll talk about that a bit, but also I wanted to talk to you about the music scene over in Australia, and the Prime Minister, Tony Abbott. Does he have as much popularity with his constituency over there that we have here? Do people in Australia feel that he's behind the times? Is he getting? I know he's not getting on board with climate change because coal is a huge issue for them, and it's a big moneymaker. Anyway, let's start with the actual climatology, and we can move from there into the art scene, and then we'll see where that takes us.
Yeah, definitely.
So, go ahead. What was the first question?
Well, Australia.
Yeah.
I think, what are they doing? Is it something like 100 million tons of coal is coming out of the ground every year? Am I right on those figures?
Oh man, not off the top of my head. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but they're definitely one of the largest, if not the largest, coal exporters in the world, and most of it goes to China.
Mm-hmm.
I do know that much.
And the whole situation with is this in Victoria Province, or most of the mining?
Well, it's happening in a lot of places. I was in New South Wales, and there were a couple protests there while I was there. But there's a lot happening in the northern part of the country. Definitely, like up near. I think it's up. I mean, there's Queensland. Queensland is probably the biggest place for it, if not North Queensland. But there wasn't a whole bunch happening where I was, and to get to where it was about 45 minutes away. So it wasn't too prominent there, but they were just starting out. You know, the first, I think it was last year or even earlier this year, they started actually fracking in Australia. They have their first well now. I think they have more, but they had their first one, I think, either this year or just last year. So that's also happening down there, in addition to the coal. And they have this campaign called Lock the Gate. And when we were down there, all of these places, there would be houses, you know, with this yellow triangle sign that said "Lock the Gate" to coal and oil and gas companies. And when your entire neighborhood did it, there would be a circular one that was hanging out at the front of the subdivision or whatever, and it would say, you know, this lot, you know, and the whole imagery is that it would usually be on gates for farms and stuff like that. So it was really prominent. I mean, much more so than any sort of ban fracking initiative here. It's definitely, and they're hugely committed. You know, they have people front line on coal. And no CSG have people going to jail every day. You know, they're posting stuff on Facebook all the time. They do really creative actions. They had a disco action. I'm not sure what it was off the top of my head, but you can search disco civil disobedience, and I'm sure it'll show up on YouTube or on Facebook on Frontline on coal in Australia's page. And it was, they do a lot. You know, they're doing a lot more than we are, unfortunately, down there for sure. There's a lot, and it's all happening, you know, in a bunch of different places and with a bunch of different people, and it's so widespread that it unlike here where it's a lot of young people and then a lot of older people who are more, you know, part of the peace and the hippie-esque movement, I guess. It's everyone. You know, you can see people in suits. There are businessmen being arrested. There are kids. There are teenagers. There are younger kids who aren't being arrested but are helping out. So it really spans all generations, and it's very much connected to the indigenous side of the Aboriginals and their heritage there, because a lot of these lands are sacred native lands, like what's happening in North Dakota and the Bakken here in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a really heavy focus of theirs. It's less about it's definitely less about communities, you know, in towns, and more about indigenous sacred lands and keeping true with allowing these people to live like they should be able to live, you know, and without, I mean, like native burial grounds are being decimated and stuff like that, and there are endangered species habitats. Bats, I know, are a really big one, and they have people locking down all the time. If you just watch their Facebook page, it's like every day there are just a bunch of people arrested in all different places, and they have a lot of support too. It's really cool.
Did you get out to the Barrier Reef at all?
I'm not sure. Not as far as I know, but I mean, I would be lying if I said I'd been keeping up 100% with what's going on there. It's kind of hard being so involved here and wanting to keep up with everything. You know, I've been spending less and less time online and more time out, you know, in the field, protecting this stuff where I am right now in Northeast Pennsylvania, Montrose, right in the heart of the Marcellus. So, but I mean, I do talk from time to time with people who are there, and I see a lot of good actions happening and whatnot. So it's definitely, you know, it's widespread, and there's a lot of support there, which is good to see. It's important to see support in an area like this that's so contested and unfortunately so political, like you said. Tony Abbott. Well, when I was there, I didn't talk to anyone who liked Tony Abbott. But you could say that my experience could have been skewed by not hanging out with a whole bunch of pro-coal, oil, and gas people because, well, I was with a group that was studying environmental action and sustainability, and we all sort of hated those people a bit. So in my experience, no one I hung out with was like, yeah, Tony Abbott's great. They were all pretty upset.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Spencer, you are doing some activity in Pennsylvania, northern Pennsylvania. Tell us about what's going on there and what kind of activism is taking place and how far-reaching is this fracking going on here in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, that's a big question. So I'm with a group called Energy Justice Shale Initiative right now. We're working with a nonprofit called Energy Justice Network with a grant from Energy Action Coalition. We started as Energy Justice Summer with a grant from the Wallace Global Fund, and now we have moved into the next phase of our grant writing. So we'll be writing grants in probably November and December to try to get more and more funding for that. But we are working with frontline communities. I mean, we're on the front lines. There's the closest gas well to us, I think, is about 1.5 miles down the road, just like straight that way. And it's actually a well that has contaminated a friend of mine's well, Matt and Tammy Manning, who, I mean, you can search them on Google. They've been all over the place in terms of media and outreach and stuff like that, and their problems have been publicized pretty well. Personally, I'm working on a series of testimonials of impacted landowners, and it includes Matt and Tammy and a few others. And it's basically, their story. What happened? How did the industry treat you when they came? How do you think of them now? How did you think of them then? What support do you need, and what problems have occurred since gas drilling has showed up here? In terms of, we've got everything from why people moved out here, the pristine landscapes, to the rural country feel that you get in Northeast Pennsylvania when you can drive for miles and there's nothing but farmland and stuff like that. It's kind of hard now. It's pretty scattered with gas development, and we're only about a very small percentage of the way through what they really want to do in Northeast Pennsylvania. They want to see at least 100,000 wells. I believe we're only just past 1,000, if that. And Cabot Oil and Gas, which is one of the biggest operators here, actually has, I think, 900 wells and 850 violations last time I checked, which was a couple months ago, so I'm sure there are probably more by now. But so we're working with impacted landowners, doing research on socioeconomic reports with indicators of poverty that talk about free and reduced school lunches in all but one school district and stuff like that. Then we have an agricultural report that talks about pre and post production of farms before and after drilling. And we have a Know Your Driller series, which takes Cabot, Chesapeake, and Shell and outlines all the violations that they have. And those will be available at some point soon. The Testimonials project will be tentatively available November 14th, the first story. We're not really sure what story it's going to be. We're still working through. I'm working with a professional photographer and videographer, Max Grudzinski and Crystal Vanderwhite. And we went and interviewed all of these people at their homes, talked with them, got pictures and video footage of how they've been impacted, and just sort of stuff that makes them, really, really personal stuff. And that's what makes this story different from any sort of documentary. It's them telling the story, and it's backed up by all sorts of DEP documents and EPA evidence, and that's on a Google Doc sheet that will be available in all of the testimonial articles. So if people want to say, where's your proof, we have the signed documents from these agencies, pre and post drill tests and stuff like that, farm production. And so it's kind of hard to disagree when you have that kind of information in front of you, and to hear these people's stories. I mean, it's nothing anyone could make up. It's at more than one time our entire crew is teary-eyed, because it's incredible to see what these people have gone through and to hear their stories. And we're really we want to get their stories out there. We want more people to know about this, and we're working on starting a national campaign with people from across the country who've been impacted, not just in Pennsylvania, but in places like Wyoming and California and whatnot who've seen problems as well, and bringing them together to organize in their communities and to come forward and show that not only can they spread their story and spread the news that way, but they can also, you know, get together and organize their communities to do something important and to stand up, because that's really what we need to see at this point in time. So that's the project I'm working on right now.
That is so important. I just think, do you think that these projects will stop the 100,000 oil wells that the fracking industry intends to put up? Do you think that is possible?
Oh man.
I guess that's why you're doing it, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta have hope. You know, there's little to do if you don't have hope, and that's we struggle with that every day. I think here, you know, it's so depressing seeing. I mean, I get new emails every day with well permits, and it's just like, here are all these wells that have been permitted just today or just yesterday. You know, so the amount is growing, and it's easy to see. You know, you're driving down the street and you're behind these trucks and you see traffic and you see accidents and you hear about spills and stuff like that. A lot of the stuff, I mean, we'll see spills or accidents and stuff, and we won't even see it covered in the local paper, you know, because the gas companies hush it up because they have enough money to avoid it being mentioned at all. But yeah, I mean, I have hope. Are we gonna? I think our greatest possibility is a moratorium on drilling, you know, new permits, because that's, I mean, halting drilling it's the goal, and it's going to be hard, but you know, we need to at least try, and that's sort of why we're here. You know, we believe that we can do something about this, and that eventually, if we get enough people will realize what's going on and join us. And it's, you know, we don't have a whole lot of support because we're like super grassroots, but we did just have an outing with the Sierra Club and a whole bunch of folks yesterday. You can check it out on our Facebook page, Energy Justice Summer, and it was, you know, a whole bunch of groups came together. I think it was 14 or 15 groups to strategize about how they can help us and how we can help them and how we can move forward on this event. And I think it's definitely going to start with the election and pressuring Tom Wolf, if he gets elected, to really start buckling down on this industry and definitely ask for a statewide moratorium as the first thing he does when he gets into office. Whether that's going to happen or not is, you know, I mean, it's not something we prefer to think about. We really like to stay positive about everything.
Well, we'll all get on board with that.
Now, the Keystone Pipeline, the tar sands, actually, I think we're getting pretty close to, is it $80 a barrel is the break-even point where it's no longer financially feasible to get it out of the ground? Are you dealing in the same way up there with the gas companies? At what point can natural gas, at what point does it have to get to for them to actually shut down their drilling because it's no longer economically feasible? Is there a statistic on that you're familiar with?
It's hard to say. You know, people say there are a lot of reasons why we can't count out drilling and why, you know, things aren't being proven and stuff, and it's because a lot of this research isn't being done. I do know that in one of the testimonials we have, Carolyn Knapp mentions that some of these companies are taking out billion-dollar mortgages to continue their practices, and some of them, you know, have just gone belly up. A lot of places, or one of the companies here, WPX, isn't even drilling anymore in this region. And I mean, there are new articles every day about how companies are struggling financially and jobs aren't where they said they would be. And just driving through, you know, Dimmock or Montrose, like there's no yellow brick road. There's no golden toilets. There's nothing that would look like there's been serious economic boom from this industry. And up to date, Dimick has made probably $135 billion from this process, and it's like none of that money has gone. Dimick is, I mean, it's a post office, an eye doctor's, optometrist office, volunteer fire department, and like 6 churches. And there have been no renovations on anything, and people will tell you, they're providing local jobs, but a lot of the jobs are going to people who are out of state, and stuff like that. So, it's the short answer is that there's really not enough research being done in that area but if you look at county court documents and all the stuff that people aren't going to look at because they just don't know where to look, then I mean you can find the answers to those questions. It's just kind of hard, but if you keep digging, you can definitely find that there's this whole everyone becoming a shaleionaire, which is their version of a millionaire or billionaire. It's a huge lie. A lot of these companies have no money, and they're not giving any of the money back, and most of the gas is going to places out of state, and now they want to pipe it to Cove Point and 28 other export facilities, change it into liquefied natural gas, which is a hugely energy-intensive process, and then ship it overseas in LNG tankers that are huge terrorist targets. I mean, these places are going to need to be guarded by armed men. There's going to be a huge amount of militarism going on in terms of transporting these ships because they're going to be easily targeted by terrorists and stuff like that. And it's going overseas. It's not even going here. If the gas were coming here and any of these companies were saying, the problems we're seeing, we understand, here's how it is, and saying it to the media and being real about it with people, it would be totally different. I mean, it still wouldn't be good, but it would be a lot better than what's happening now, which is, something goes wrong and they immediately offer money and water deliveries and have people sign non-disclosure agreements or gag orders, which says you can't mention the company in any sort of public statement or you'll be sued for millions of dollars. And these people don't have a choice. They need water to live. They need money to live. And when these companies come and they're like, we can give you both of those things, you just have to shut up. Some people just have to take that, and it's a shame.
There was about 5 years ago, I saw, I think it was a cabinet energy executive actually drinking water with fracking fluid in it, and he wanted to make sure that people felt that it was safe. I noticed too that MSNBC has a commercial out. MSNBC. This is one of the more left-leaning regular news sites, but they actually have a commercial about fracking being safe. At what point did the if you've noticed this, at what point did the companies come in and actually have they actually done any protection in terms of bringing water treatment systems into people's homes who have been affected, or do they consider the water so safe that they don't have to do this?
It's a two-part question. I mean, definitely, like Matt and Tammy are a perfect example. They were getting, when their well went bad, which was the same week that the well down the street from us, the Depews well 12 casing failed during the drilling process. They were delivered water for, I think, 11 months, and then one day when they determined, that problems weren't caused by gas drilling, and it was, Salt Springs State Park or flooding or, any number of other things they're trying to blame it on because they don't want to take the blame. They stopped delivering it, and they wanted to take their water buffaloes. and which is basically a water storage container which holds anywhere from 500 to like 1,300 gallons of water, and people blockaded it, and they didn't take it. So yeah, I mean they were delivering water to a lot of these families, and it was costing them a lot of money. Uh, and now their whole thing, like I was saying with the gag orders, is like, yeah, we'll bring you water and whatnot, and give you X amount of money, but you can't mention our name. So they're not being straight up with anyone. They come and they immediately lie. They're not telling you the best value you can get. The landmen aren't telling you the amount that you should be getting for leasing to them. We know people who've signed 200 acres for $25 an acre, and we know people who've signed 125 acres for $5,000 an acre. It's a matter of how well you know how to play their game, and that's the whole thing. It's like they're not honest with anyone. They immediately come in and they lie and try to weasel their way into a situation where they're not spending a lot, and they're taking a lot from you and making a lot off of it. So yeah, I mean they will install those filters and stuff in exchange for you signing a document that says you can never mention them by name ever, or they will sue you for everything you're worth. But as far as doing it right, I mean, there are companies that are, I mean, there haven't been, not every single well has failed. That's a pretty optimistic way of looking at it, but there are ways to do this in a way that's a lot less harmful than what's going on right now. You can use high-grade cement for casings. You can make sure that things are being inspected. You can make sure that methane leakages aren't occurring. So there are ways to make sure everything's going at least in a lot better way than it is now, exponentially better. As for being safe, I mean, MSNBC. Well, I mean, just a side comment. MSNBC was at Flood Wall Street, and then when the police started arresting people, or right before they started arresting people, MSNBC took off, because they don't want any of that footage. And as far as politics go, Obama is one of the biggest proponents for this. Natural gas. We need clean burning natural gas, which is, it's half of it. It's clean burning, but the methane leakages that we're seeing now, anywhere from 5 to 9%, are 87 times as bad as CO2 for the climate. So clean burning natural gas, doesn't really hold that much water when it comes to it doesn't hold that much. When it comes
to, I ask you if you were familiar with any class action lawsuits going on up in Tioga County. I believe I think there was one I read about out in Wyoming where, because the gas companies are not paying the royalties that were promised, that people were getting together. I think they had a particular lawyer that was working on it for everybody, so it would qualify for class action on the basis of the different energy companies not paying the royalties, which I understand that is going on up north. Are you aware of any class action suits that are coming up or being prepared by the people who are being affected?
As far as class action suits, I mean, there are definitely articles, all the time in smaller publications. In some big publications, Times Tribune has done a few on people who aren't being paid royalties, but it's really mostly residents telling us, and then, if they don't have the evidence to back it up, it's kind of hard to say that that's what's going on, because these companies have a lot of money and a lot of resources, and if we say one thing wrong, to hurt our credibility, they're going to immediately jump on it. But I do know that a lot of people have definitely expressed the fact that they're not getting the royalties that they deserve, and it's all because of a lack of regulation. There's nothing that says these companies need to be, it's self-check. It's like, those kids, it's kids during a test who are told, check your answers, or homework problems are in the back of the book. Check your answers. Yeah, okay, I'm definitely not going to copy all the answers from the back of the book. Like it's the same sort of idea. These companies are self-checking themselves, and they're like, yeah, well, we did that right, sort of, kind of, not really, but no one needs to know about it, and stuff like that. There is actually my friend Vera Scroggins, whose YouTube channel, Vera Duerga, Vera-Duerga, has 500 videos of stuff of every single thing you could possibly imagine. You can go on there and find an instance of silica sand being transferred illegally or in a way that's harmful to human health. There are violations that we've needed to call OSHA for. There's all sorts of stuff on there, but she's actually, I think Wednesday is going in to deal with an injunction. She has an injunction with Cabot. Cabot has an injunction against her that prevents her from being less than 100 feet from a well access road. So if she's like giving a tour or something, which she does all the time, we actually just gave one 2 days ago to the Sierra Club and a whole bunch of other people. She can't stop within 100 feet of an access road, so we need to keep driving, and that happens a lot. But she's going to back to court on Wednesday for a hearing to try to reduce that injunction, which originally started out as she couldn't even go on any Cabot leased land, which included like the hospital, schools, doctors' offices, the supermarket, like entire regions of Montrose and Dimmock and other areas, because a lot of these places are leased, like a lot of them. So in that way, we have been seeing. She's really the only. That's like a special case, but she's been doing a lot to fight the industry, and I strongly suggest if anyone wants to learn anything more about that, definitely go to her YouTube channel and watch any video there. And she's got commentary. She's really, really good. She does interviews. She just did a documentary, Frack US, band, or it's RT News did a documentary that I'm actually in with her quite a bit of, and she's talking about infrastructure and stuff like that. That's the newest one, and that's definitely a good. I just watched it last night, actually. I just got a chance to watch it, and that's really well done, and that'll tell you a lot about people and a little bit about how a lot of people aren't speaking out, and we definitely need more. We need more people speaking out, and the problem is that the industry will try to silence people with non-disclosure and gag orders and all this stuff, and we need to show that we're not afraid of that. We need to rise above that and get lawyers who are going to take these cases and show them that we can beat this industry if we have the right tools.
What is the name of the filmmaker that you just referred to, that we can access that film you were just talking about?
Oh, it's on RT News. If you go to RT News' YouTube channel, it should be Frack US. I forget what there's something in parentheses. Safe drilling or something like that, quote unquote.
Oh, that's cool.
But it's on RT News. Yeah, that's a really good one. That one just came out, and it's heavily based around Vera and.
Thank you.
I want to take you back to Australia. We are looking at these. I saw some pictures recently of the barrier reef. The acidification is destroying the coral, and this is, I think they're saying this is like one of the top 20 natural places to go, scenic places, like natural wonders of the world. I'm sure the Australians are concerned about their barrier reef. And I noticed in your book you were walking in the ocean and you got stung by a man of war. And I'm thinking about, well, we can equate the excess acidification of the ocean with all these different um, sea creatures that are actually proliferating at a pretty vast rate, considering what they used to, how they used to proliferate, because of the acidification of the oceans. Now, apparently, the barrier reef, when we found out that it was dissolving, the coral was breaking down, the color in the coral was getting washed out, that there was no connection at that particular time with anything that had to do with climate change. Are they actually making that connection now in Australia?
That's a good question. Oh man. I mean, I think the connection's been made. You know, scientists have said the barrier reef probably has 10 more years left. So I'm like counting down the time when I need to go back. You know, that I have to see it, because it's. I think it's deteriorated about 50% due to ocean acidification, like you said. As for, so I mean, I feel like it's a pretty well known. I feel like it's a pretty well known phenomenon that it's definitely happening and is directly related to climate. I mean, yeah, I would say I don't know how you could argue against that. I'd say it's pretty directly related in terms of ocean acidification, just as an occurrence itself, which is hugely important to the health of reefs and other areas of like aquatic biodiversity and whatnot. But so yeah, I mean, I would say it's pretty well known everywhere. There have been a bunch of articles that have talked about ocean acidification and with relation to the barrier reef, with before and after pictures and stuff. I didn't unfortunately get to go there when I was in Australia. That's actually mentioned in my book. I was going to go there, and then I told the leader of my group, which was a poor choice. I should have just said, yes, I'm definitely going to be in New South Wales, and not leave, and then have left and then come back, because they were like, yeah, we're going to contact you every day of the independent study project to make sure we know where you are, which didn't happen. So I think I wasted about $600 on a plane ticket there and back, unfortunately, and never got reimbursed, so I was pretty bitter about that. I think I mentioned that somewhere in the book, but after some heavy meditation, I realized that worse things could have happened.
Spencer, how do we get a hold? Tell our audience how to get a hold of your book.
Yeah, I mean, there's you can search it on. I would prefer you go to smashwords.com and just search Trail Mix and Goon, Adventures Abroad in Oz, because you can pay. I think on Barnes and Noble, Kobo Books, and iTunes, iBooks, it's 99 cents, but on Smashwords you can like choose your price. I made it 99 cents because I watched this TED Talk that was sort of about, you know, if people want to support you, they will. So it was originally $12.99 because I wanted some extra money in my pocket, but I figured, you know, money's money, and I have my whole life to get money and lose money, and so it's not that big a deal. But it's good to have people support you. So if you go to Smashwords, you can pick your own price and donate as much as you want, and it's mostly going to go toward musical endeavors and whatnot, and future books, you know, and hard copies of the book if people want that, for sure. So when the money comes in from that, which will hopefully happen, there will be hard copies to be had, which is really cool. The cover design's really cool.
It is. I love the cover. Are you writing? Are you writing as prolifically now as you were in Australia about your adventures in Frackland?
Yeah, I'm working on a series of short stories called Behind the Lorax, which is I always refer to myself as this Lorax character, and it's not, you know, any sort of ego trip or anything like that. It's heavily connected to my life and growing up with a dad who's an environmental lawyer, with a boat named the Lorax, and growing up on the water and learning about the connection that we have, the symbiotic connection we have with the trees, and just the fact that we need trees to breathe, and stuff like that. And it just so happens that I am an environmental person and enjoy being in trees, and I'm sort of like a new age hippie-esque. Friends refer to me as like kind of like a cartoon. But that's all about, heavily based around what I've been feeling here in terms of support that we have seen and haven't seen, and it's a lot of stream of consciousness, non-fiction reflections of living up in Susquehanna County, and just sort of reflections on life and consciousness and death and understanding and love and all sorts of stuff, but definitely with a theme that focuses on how I got here and what it's been like since I've been here.
Do you have a web page?
Yeah, I have a web page. That's spencerhjohnson.com. You can also follow me on Facebook, Spencer H. Johnson, or if you're really dedicated, shoot me a friend request, which is I actually recently changed my Facebook name to Penn Johnson, as sort of playing more music, like I mentioned, and everyone wants a stage name, So I think that's going to be once I figure out what's going on with future writing, I think that's going to be a pen name, if you will, for me as well. And
that's a great ring to it.
Yeah, well, it's sort of a girl I've been hanging out with sort of started calling me Pen, as in P-E-N, which is just like for writing, and then I added the extra N because I'm in Pennsylvania, and for every show which I dedicate to the people of the shale fields and people who've been disproportionately affected by climate change, I wanted to remind myself and the audience, that this is why I'm here, fighting for Pennsylvania, fighting for the shale fields. So that was sort of the reasoning behind that. And on my website, there should be a list, there should be a subscribe button, and I send out a weekly email that goes out, and or bi-weekly sometimes, which showcases some of my new writing and whatnot, and you can buy the book from there. There's a link in there and all that stuff. So yeah, working on the whole social media stuff.
Oh, congratulations, that's great. Do you have any last words of wisdom? How can people who are watching this and who will be watching this, how can they help you with what you're doing right now?
I'm doing a lot right now. I would say, probably three things. Come to the shale fields, or encourage your friends to come and take one of these tours. Because once you see this infrastructure for yourself, you're never going to support any sort of natural gas extraction ever again. And I think that's the number one thing. You can donate to Energy Justice Summer, which is energyjusticesummer.org, and there's a donate feature on our website. And you can learn more about our project there. It's got who we are, why we're doing this, and a few blog posts about recent outings and stuff. And definitely follow us on Facebook at Energy Justice Summer. But there's also, how would you support me? I don't know. Buy the book. Tell people, tell people what's going on. Encourage them to get outside, to appreciate what's around them, and then to come up here and see that all that can be taken away.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's landscape's changing.
Thank you, Spencer.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate your attention. And Spencer can come back anytime. It would be really great to continue to watch your adventures, Spencer, and keep an eye on the pulse, the finger on the pulse. Have some last words, Tom?
And hopefully we can, from time to time, come back and log the progress that people are making to take back their environment and to take back their lives.
Right
Definitely.
on. Power to the people.
One more thing.
Yeah.
I'm starting to play more and more music, so I do have a SoundCloud account. There's not a whole bunch up on there yet, but it's Penn Johnson, PennJohnson. So share that music, because that's the music of the shale fields. And contact me if you want, if you have like a music opportunity or an opportunity to speak or something like that. I'd love to come and share my experience with younger kids who might, want to graduate college and be like, yeah, I could, start working for one of these big companies and making all sorts of money, or I could go to a place like the shale fields and organize in the grassroots and learn more about, who I am and who we are and why we're here and what we're doing this all for. And definitely community, community is huge here. The community is, for the people who are involved with this stuff, the community is really strong, and it's definitely what keeps us going.
Yeah, we need to communicate that message to children because they don't need to be bummed out at such a young age, depressed, suicidal, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I can speak to that at a later date, but
yeah, that would be a good topic, really.
Yeah, definitely, and it's it's common here. There's a lot of that because of what's going on, the disconnects that we see from. I mean, you're here and you're like, this is happening, and you're just like looking around. And people are just walking down the street, doing their own thing. All these trucks are passing on the road, silica sand trucks, wastewater trucks, and getting in accidents and destroying the roads. And people don't talk about it enough. That's the thing. What can you do? Talk. Just, get out there and talk. Tell people what's happening.
Yeah, get out of denial. That's what it is. All right, well, we'll see you again.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Love to you.
Take care, Spencer. Thanks for all your good work.
Yeah, you're doing great work. Thank you so much.
Peace, guys.